Anine, hi all. Thanks for joining me today for another read along out of Gidjie and the Wolves. Last time we read the chapter Whiskers, and today we're going to read Akiwa and the Chickadee. Come on, Whiskers, Gidjie tells her trail companion. There's a turtle counting on us today. On their way through the forest, Gidjie takes notice of the plant distribution and phenology. The pine trees become interspersed with aspen, oak, and cherry before giving way to a scrubland of hazelnut, wild rose, and blooming raspberry bushes. Soon the white blossoms will fall, and the ends of twigs will swell into hard green fruit that plump up red in the hot summer sun. She sighs, deeply in love with the procession of life. They reach the line of alders growing near the water's edge, where the river is deep and cool. Gidjie crouches down, cupping her hands together, a palm-sized body of water, mirroring her reflection. "Do you think my mom and dad looked anything like me?" she asks Whiskers, who stops lapping water nearby to give her hands a nudge with her head, causing a little of the water to spill. She lowers her hands. The water, now full of her wondering, is released back to the river, her question about her parents carried downstream. As her focus sinks below the surface of the river, she notices another pair of eyes looking back at her, besides her own. They are red and black striped and unblinking. She gasps and stumbles back on her heels, falling atop Whiskers, who scurries off. "Akiwa!" she exclaims in a whisper. She digs a pinch of asema out of her pouch and holds it closed in her palm. She closes her eyes. She lets herself feel everything that's happened so far in the day, and then focuses in on the need of the turtle. "Gidjie manadu zibe, Akiwe, Gidjie gane shiindijnakas," she says, identifying herself to the spirit of mystery, the river, and the snapjaw. She informs all why she is there, that a turtle is in need of medicine. She asks for pity and for help. She thanks them for listening, and then opens her eyes. She releases the asema onto the surface of the water, and then takes several steps back and turns to scramble up a small incline. She finds an inviting spot by a bush and sits, just out of view of the shoreline. The minutes go by, and as she remains with an open heart and mind, listening in to the life around and within her, just as she is getting stiff in the legs and starts to shift around, she hears it. The skin-tingling sound of water rushing off of an enormous shell, as the ancient turtle makes her way out of the river and onto the shore. Gidjie can hear her feet padding slowly, and the sound of the shell dragging across earth and pebble as Akiwa presses up the incline. The hair on Gidjie's arms is standing on end. Akiwa is still out of sight. She closes her eyes and waits until the sounds are quieted down before slowly opening them. The air in her lungs becomes trapped for a moment. Akiwa is staring into her eyes, inches from her face. Their heads are about the same size, and all Gidjie can see are Akiwa's eyes. Everything else in the world blurs. Until... chirp, chirp, chirp. Chirp, chirp, chirp. Chirp, chirp, chirp. A tiny black-capped chickadee is hopping up the back of the snapjaw in Gidjie's peripheral, making its way onto the turtle's enormous head. Slowly, she brings her gaze from Akiwa's stare to see the chickadee is holding up a clump of lichen in its beak. It tilts its head one side and then to the other, and when it's satisfied that Gidjie has gotten a good look, it flies away. Akiwa breaks her gaze upon Gidjie and begins making her way back down towards the river. Gidjie's breath returns, and she realizes she needs to act quickly. She fumbles for the glass jar and crawls on her hands and knees behind the retreating Akiwa, searching the tiny ecosystem of lichens, mosses, slime molds, and tiny plants upon her back for the particular medicine she had been shown. She fills the jar and replaces it in her bag. Before she gets up, she acknowledges those who had heard and responded to her for their help, including Gidjie Ganeshi, the chickadee. Gidjie's namesake is the chickadee, and it was now clear to Gidjie why Nokomis had sent her out to gather the 3 short calls. She knew the little bird could help Gidjie find what was needed. "Come on, let's get back to the sanctuary," she tells Whiskers, who had stayed hidden in a nearby bush to watch the action. Whiskers comes out stretching, and the two make their way home, Gidjie recognizing that her fear of the bend in the river had morphed into a feeling of empowerment and trust. And that is the end of the chapter. Next time we're going to be reading the chapter, The Aunties. Thank you for joining me again today as we read from Gidjie and the Wolves. I hope you'll join me next time. Kegwaba men mina wa na gudge. I will see you again later. Me quitch.